On September 10th of this year, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was murdered at Utah Valley University during an event where he spoke with young people about the different issues going on in today's state of politics. Following his gruesome passing, online conversation of the topic went ballistic, with a divide so great we as a society lost the original ideas and values that we've held on to for so long. Instead of mourning the loss of our fellow human being, heated arguments took. People went online and spoke about a sense of indifference, or stated that he deserved the violence that he received in his last moments. These heated arguments took place in every corner of the internet, from TikTok to X, even on Instagram. Thousands of people stated their varying opinions to be met with malice and hatred in a place that was made for all of us around the world to connect more. This, unfortunately, is only the most recent case of online hatred being spewed at one another in the side of politics on social media. Every single day, people receive online threats of violence and death purely off of their different opinions in a comment section, and we all need to do better. Having an open mind and listening to our fellow people with different political views online is absolutely essential if we want to begin to have productive dialogue, reduce polarization in online politics, and grow a mutual understanding with each other. Today, we will discuss how having an open mind can promote productive dialogue. Next, how we can reduce polarization in online communities talking about politics. And then finally, how listening can offer a mutual understanding and grow empathy with one another. As an avid social media user, I've seen firsthand the haunting messages that people leave when discussing even the most trivial parts of politics, and it hurts my soul to see people talk to each other in such a way. So firstly, how can we promote productive dialogue to be more open-minded? Well, first, approaching conversations open-mindedly signals that we are engaging with people rather than just ultimately quickly dismissing their views. Engaging in conversation is one of the best ways that we can show people that we're actually interested in trying to have an actual dialogue rather than just trying to have a heated argument. People are much more likely to lash out if they feel that they are being disrespected or unheard in some form. And that's largely one of the reasons why discussing politics online can be so daunting. So, being open-minded promotes questions like asking, why do you feel this way? Asking someone why they feel this way invites a lot more conversation to be had, and more people will be inclined to share their own experiences to better give an understanding as to why they have the opinion that they do. This makes people feel heard rather than just ultimately dismissing their view. Next, this approach does not necessarily mean that you have to agree with everything that they say. You don't really even have to agree with a single thing that they say. But respect between yourselves is non-negotiable. Psychology Today explains that it's not necessary to agree with every viewpoint that your opposing debater may have. But to be effectively open-minded is to be empathetic and to listen to one another. So now, it's time to delve further into the divide and what's causing it. So, listening to opposing views can help reduce the level of polarization in our discussion forums. So, what are some of the causes? Well, firstly, conversations online in comment sections or on threads pages or things like that often turn into echo chambers, where essentially what that means is you're just kind of repeating the same fact over and over again instead of actually moving on from the conversation or building off of what was previously stated. There's no real territory covered when this is being practiced. So people often regurgitate information that may or may not be truthful to avoid looking uneducated. Now, this is obviously very problematic because it is much better to be uneducated than it is to be purposefully wrong just to prove a point. Being uneducated is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means you haven't been exposed to that information and haven't had the opportunity to properly learn from it. Additionally, constant exposure to like-minded thoughts only helps further to divide. if you don't have any exposure at all to seeing what the opposing arguments would be or other perspectives may be, then you will only delve further into your tunnel visioned way of thinking, and you won't have a chance to grow as an opinionated person. The National Library of Medicine states that social feedback theory is the explanation for the opinion polarization phenomena due to the reinforcement learning mechanisms. So, what that essentially means is people will constantly reinforce the same views that you already feel, which will lead them to be less open-minded about listening to other perspectives and other views on different opinions. And it's important to remember that opinions may not drastically change at all, but it is very important to be at least aware of what the other opposing arguments are, and it's very important to at least try and understand where they're coming from. Awareness of other people's views inherently prevents hostility, and it promotes a lot more coexistence between two parties trying to make the best of their country, because ultimately we all do live in one country, and furthering this divide in these ways online, especially with young people who are leading these conversations, is one of the most detrimental things that can be offered to where we are as a society. So, just listening to one another can have such a positive effect, which brings us to how listening can create a mutual understanding between opposing arguments and how it can invite empathy. So, firstly, at its core, political opinions stem from people's own values and experiences and morals. Disregarding these people and their opinions innately disregards them as people, because most people don't feel a certain way just for no reason. They were led to believe a certain thing for a reason. So being open and understanding and trying to hear where they're coming from to lead them to feel that way is important if you want to try and create some type of common ground and grow from it as people. Empathy allows us to increase patience, lower judgment, and promote cooperation. And this mindset will help us all keep conversations civil and respectful like they should be, because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to make the world a better place. When people are feeling understood, they likely won't even resort to insults in any form. However, the Pew Research Center states that 4 in 10 Americans have dealt with some form of online harassment, and half of all of those cases stem from discussing politics in some type of online way. That means that you have a very high likelihood of discussing politics and receiving some type of backlash, whether it be insults, threats of violence, or anything similar. Doing all of these things I spoke about today will help us in keeping an open mind when it comes to discussing different political views, which is absolutely essential if we want to have productive dialogue, reducing polarization in online politics, and growing mutual understandings with one another. Firstly, we spoke on how we can promote productive dialogue in online spaces. After that, we spoke about how we can reduce polarization by just listening to one another and lessening the divide. And finally, how much listening can offer mutual understanding and promote empathy between different varying opinions. I'm sure all of us have a lot of experience with this topic. And even if you didn't choose to take anything from my speech, it's still important to remember everyone you speak to has a reason to feel the way that they do. Whether it's right or wrong in your eyes, it's not negotiable to treat one another with respect. And if we want to change the world, it has to be together. That's it.